Black Friday, and yeah, on another walk and talk. So, what is it that I'm going to talk with you about on this particular walk and talk? Well, I'll talk to you about the ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah that's happening. It's been implemented as of a couple days ago, and so far, I'm happy to report, for the most part, it seems to be holding up. Here I am in northern Israel, and we haven't had any air raid sirens here since the ceasefire went into effect. There was one yesterday morning at the very north of Israel in a town called Arab al Aramsheh. It's an Israeli town just on the Israeli side of the Lebanese border with Israel. And turns out, apparently, it was what the IDF called a false alarm. So that is a good thing. There have been, however, some violations of the ceasefire, notably inside Lebanon by Hezbollah, who are doing some movements that were against the ceasefire. And so Israel struck a weapons depot where they were moving things around that they weren't supposed to be doing in the hours after the ceasefire went into effect. They are supposed to withdraw north of the Litani River, but whatever they were doing there was apparently against the rules of the ceasefire. On top of that, you have a bunch of citizens in South Lebanon, just regular residents of towns in the south of South Lebanon, who immediately wanted to return to their villages and towns. They were told very clearly by the IDF before the ceasefire went into effect, and when the ceasefire went into effect, and after the ceasefire went into effect, do not return to your towns and villages yet. It's not safe yet. We still have soldiers there. There's still, ordnance there. There might be some unexploded ordnance between, from all the fighting that's been happening between Israel and Hezbollah. Israel is clearing things out, and they made it very clear that they would let those residents know when it is safe to return, and they intend, they're doing that as quickly as they can in accordance with the ceasefire, because they want, obviously, people to be able to return to their homes. Israel has pledged to leave Lebanon within 60 days, so obviously it does not want to be in South Lebanon, right? But at the same time, if we are going to have more real violations, and by the way, when the citizens tried to get back to their towns and villages, Israel had to fire some warning shots into the air or on the ground or whatever they did, to tell people do not approach. I think there might have been some people actually wounded in some of that because they were aggressively approaching and would not stop. Some of them came right up to soldiers, apparently, very aggressively, and some people had to be arrested by the Israeli forces. The Lebanese army has apparently begun to patrol the areas away from Israeli soldiers, like on the agreed areas where they're supposed to patrol. And for now, they're doing their best to keep the Lebanese citizens away from the towns that they're not supposed to go to just yet. But as soon as they are allowed to, Israel will tell them, and then their Lebanese army will tell them, and they'll all be going back. And to that point, citizens in Israel who've been displaced by the war the past 14 months in the north of Israel, more than 60,000, 70,000, up to 100,000, depends on, whatever the numbers are, but anywhere from 60 to 100,000 people in Israel have also been displaced internally on the northern border, right? People who live in towns and villages and cities in the north of Israel have had to leave their homes for more than a year now because of this ongoing war, because they live in areas where there's just so much shelling, mortars and rockets and missiles and everything. They're so close to the border that they're just constantly, they would have been living in bomb shelters half the time. So instead, they left those areas, and they've been displaced internally for now more than a year, and they have not yet returned. Right? Again, Israel will tell them when it's safe to return. Now, why is it that it's Israel that gets to tell them when they can return. Well, because they are the force majeure, right? That is why. They are the kinetically superior side in terms of what's on the field. And they are the one who will determine when it is actually safe, because they are the ones who will actually clear a lot of the ordnance, or all the ordnance that they can find, from being a threat to anybody, right? Hezbollah, not going to do that, right? Hezbollah will be delighted if people get harmed or killed by leftover ordinances on the battlefield. They could not care less, right? They just obviously could not. It's good PR for them, propaganda. Oh, look, old shells from the war have killed X amount of civilians in Israel or in Lebanon. It's the Israelis' fault. How is it the Israelis' fault when Hezbollah started the war? So Israel is the military that is superior in the region. So it is their responsibility to make sure that they clear the area as much as possible for anything that they can find as they withdraw, and that they make sure that the areas that they leave are safe, and they also make sure that the areas in northern Israel are safe for people to return to. Now, at the same time, Prime Minister Netanyahu has said that he has ordered the IDF to prepare for renewing the war in case Hezbollah does in fact violate the ceasefire, to a degree that he believes that the war needs to be restarted. Personally, I'm not down with being flexible on those violations. As far as I'm concerned, they already violated it yesterday with that weapons depot movement thing. To me, that's a violation. But yeah, they are, again, short term, obviously people support the whole notion of having a ceasefire, right? Many people support that in Israel and in Lebanon. People are sick and tired of this stupid war, and we want to go about our daily lives without having to worry about rockets and bombs and things like that. At the same time, we know that this ceasefire just means Hezbollah now has another breather, that they can rearm, regroup, reposition, recruit, regain strength, and return for more fire and bombs and rockets and attacks and war as soon as they see the opportunity. Maybe that's months or years or decades away, but it has not ended, right? This war is not over, right? There's a ceasefire, but the war is not over. And that is unfortunate. That is very unfortunate, because it means that in the long term, Lebanon is still occupied by Hezbollah. The Lebanese government is still partly occupied by Hezbollah, which has found its way into the electorate's heart and been elected into their parliament, their government. And that is bad for Lebanon, because Hezbollah is not helping them grow. Hezbollah is a terrorist organization. They commit many crimes, including obviously violent terrorism, but also fraud and other forms of crime. And not just in Lebanon, by the way, but around the world. Did you know that Hezbollah has one of the largest, if not the largest, car scams going on in South America, right? You can look that up. So they commit a lot of crime, and a lot of embezzlement or fraud or, whatever. Tons and tons of crime. That's how they fund a lot of their activity. And, they're not good people. So as far as the ceasefire goes, yes, it is holding up for now. Yes, there is relative quiet here in the north of Israel, and people are going about their daily lives as usual. And for now, it seems like we don't have to be constantly thinking about shelters and air raids and things like that. But people here are also very realistic, and they know We've been here before. And the fact that we didn't end this means we're likely to be here again. Right? We are likely to see this happen again. This is not over by any means. This is, unfortunately, very much not over. There's every probability that we will be revisiting this malignant conflict at some point in the future. Because, after all, what is Hezbollah? It's a proxy of Iran. Right? It's a Shia proxy of Iran. What does that mean? That means that Iran pays for them and arms them and supplies them and trains them. Right? It gives them everything they need to keep fighting and attacking Israel and oppressing the people that they control in Lebanon. So all of that is not good. Right? And until, honestly, the people of Iran decide that they've had it with their theocratic dictators, there is very little chance that we will actually see any change of significance here, right? Because they are what people who observe the situation, and industry experts and analysts, call the head of the octopus, right? And their tentacles extend to Yemen and Gaza, the West Bank, and Syria and Lebanon and Iraq, all over the place, really, and even in other places like in South America, I mentioned, and in parts of Asia. So that is the real problem, right? It's just it just happens to be that their current little proxy here in Lebanon, just north of where I am, have decided that for now they've taken enough of a beating by Israel that they cried uncle, and they want to stop the constant gunfire and rocket fire for now. That's what we're dealing with, and hopefully we'll see it all resolved peacefully. But again, I ain't losing sleep over that. Okay, talk to you guys later. Peace.